All right, it's all good?
Mhm.
Awesome. So do I call the meeting to order? Do we need a vote on that?
I don't
Perfect.
think on that part.
All right, I call this meeting to order. Courtney, do you want to do roll? It looks like we're a little short on people.
Yes, I will call roll. Kirk Will.
Yep, I'm here.
Morning, Kirk. Amy Moyer. John Ring.
Present.
Morning, John. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally. Selvin White Skunk. Brett Wolk. Katie McGrath Novak.
Hello.
Morning. And Commissioner Clyde Church.
Here.
Good morning, Commissioner. So
Morning.
we do have 4 members, which is the minimum needed for quorum.
All right, perfect. Well, with that, did people get a chance to look at the previous meeting minutes? Can we get a vote or a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Thank you. Anyone second? Am I allowed to second?
I think so. I'm not sure.
All right, I'll second. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to read the rules you sent me, Courtney.
I don't even know if that part was in the rules.
Those in favor of approving the previous meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. All right, so we have Laura Hickey here with CDR Associates. She's going to give us an update on the Colorado Forest Resilience Planning Guide. We've got some focus groups coming up for that, so I'll let her take that away, and then we can do any Q&A if people have any questions.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It is now afternoon. As Katie mentioned, I'm here just to give a quick update on the development of the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. I wanted to update you all kind of on our outreach strategy to begin with, and then just walk you kind of through the objectives that we have come up with. And these are the objectives that'll kind of be the basis of our outreach. So for the outreach, our primary method and forum is going to be some focus groups that are upcoming. One on June 20th and one on June 25th. They're virtual focus groups, really oriented and attempting to contact and involve the ideal users and audience of the guide. And we'll follow the focus groups with a survey and some individual outreach to make sure that we fill in any gaps in kind of those users and intended audience that were not present at the focus groups. I'm happy to report that for the focus group for the June 20th one, I have some people signing up from a variety of backgrounds. This includes the Ute Mountain Tribe, the State Forest Service, the Division of Fire Prevention and Control, Department of Local Affairs, and then a couple county level representatives as well. So it seems like we're kind of reaching our target audience. So I'm really looking forward to that. And those folks are our target audience because the guide objectives that we've kind of come up with in my meetings with the project team so far are to help users identify their needs to promote resilient forests, and then guide them through kind of a roadmap to develop local priorities and integrate science-based tools into developing those priorities. And lastly, assessing which technical and financial resources can help them accomplish the plan that they came up with. So that's kind of the sequence and process of the objectives, is helping people understand where they're at, understand how to collaboratively come up with priorities and integrate that scientific data piece into it, and finally understand what technical and financial resources are out there for them to meet those unique goals. So with that, yeah, I'll open for any questions.
Any questions from anyone?
Question. Are you selectively picking candidates to be in the focus group, or are you just taking anybody that signs up?
No, we are not selectively kind of wading through whoever signs up. Anybody is welcome. We have been doing outreach to certain networks to try to kind of narrow down who attends these focus groups. Clyde, have you received an invite? You're more than welcome, and I can share the information if you'd like
Please
to.
send it again, would you please?
Sure.
I miss a few emails here and there.
I'm sure your inbox is very full. Happy to pull that information. I can drop it in the chat here. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Fine, yeah.
Laura, if you could put that in the chat, I think it would be helpful for everyone.
Awesome.
I think Courtney, did you have a hand up as well?
Yeah, Laura, I was wondering if you thought it would be beneficial for, like, I know people from DNR will attend these meetings, but is there a benefit to us as committee members attending to somehow support the focus group, or more your team is going to be facilitating and you don't really need the committee members to participate from that angle? You would just need us to give feedback or like participate as attendees.
That's a great question, Courtney. Thank you. So one of the focus groups our team will facilitate, and the second one will be through the Colorado Forest Collaborative Networks branching out session. So Katie will be supporting me on facilitation for that one. And so I welcome you all to attend as attendees and leave the facilitation to us. I want you to feel like you can participate from your point of view and expertise, and not from the committee.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great.
Awesome.
Tosca?
I'm not actually on this committee, so I don't know if I'm actually allowed to ask questions, but may I?
You're always allowed to ask questions, Tosca.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and sorry, I've been out for a while, so I apologize that I haven't provided any feedback or comments yet, but I'm very excited looking over the progress that you've made since the last time I checked in. Unfortunately, I will be out again on the 20th for the dates that you've got, I think both dates. And
Okay.
so I was wondering, I know the branching out sessions are usually recorded, but there's just so much relevance that this discussion is going to have an overlap with the readiness framework and the progress we're making there, because these are very much aligned, these efforts.
Yes.
And so I would love to be able to go back and listen to the conversations that come out of this. So if it's possible to get a transcript or a recording of it, I would love to listen in after the fact. But if not, you gotta take those hits sometimes when you can't be present. I understand.
Tosca, we will prepare a meeting summary after each focus group. Katie, maybe we can connect offline about recording and kind of discuss the pros and cons of that for the focus groups. But in any scenario, Tosca, I can include you in that individual outreach for feedback, and I can tell you about what we heard from the focus groups as well.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Usually for like more discussion oriented ones, I don't record. But yeah, maybe like a detailed summary would be good. That also leads into the question that I was going to ask, which Laura, I don't know if you saw the email from Allison Lurch, but she was saying that she also cannot attend both of them. But she really wanted to give like a DNR leadership type perspective. So do we have a plan? Is that where the surveys will go out, or like, because I do think that having perspectives from those types of people would be really important.
Yeah, I think both surveys and that offer of individual outreach. So that's my time I can offer for kind of a half-hour meeting with those who weren't able to attend, but provide great perspectives like Allison.
Awesome. Cool. And we have a check-in on Wednesday, which I've done part of the pre-work for, and I'm going to do the rest very soon.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, ideas for Laura?
Okay.
Cool.
I'll get that information in the chat as I listen in. Thank you for the time today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Laura. Awesome. If people have other follow-up questions, you can always get in touch with Laura or myself or Brett Wolk or any of us on kind of that core planning team for that. All right. Moving on. So for this meeting, I was trying to come up with an agenda with Courtney, and we thought it would be a good idea to just do a little bit of recentering and kind of thinking through like, okay, where are we at? What are all the things we've talked about? So Courtney had put in the agenda a list of parking lot items, which I can paste in the chat real quick. But basically, these are all just bullet points that I looked through some of our meeting notes from the past 6 months or so and saw like, what have we been talking about? And what are some of the ideas that we've all thought are good ideas? And then just maybe we can just have a quick discussion about that and where we want to move forward next. So I'm going to paste that in the chat. Okay, it's a little bit messy formatting, but hopefully you can at least get the idea of what's on there. So these are all things that we've talked about that we might want to tackle. So I'm curious if there's anything missing from this list that you're like, oh no, we said we wanted to do blank. Or if there's any of these that we really want to work on, if there's action items. And then just looking forward, how do we want to plan the next couple of months of work based on some of these ideas? And Courtney and I also did acknowledge that like we are working on 2 fairly big projects right now. One is the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. That's obviously a major product that this group is taking the lead on. And then also we've been decently involved in the forest tracker. So I don't want to insinuate that we need to pick any of these to do a big project on right now, but just trying to center us and see what direction we want to go next. So one thing that stuck out to me, it's let's see, like the third bullet point down, one of the things that we talked about is when we were looking at the CAL FIRE and the Utah Watershed Restoration Initiative programs, it seemed like everybody really liked that graphic from Utah and how like, I wonder what would we want our graphic to look like 30 years from now? And we could kind of use that to guide the 30-year vision that the Forest Health Council is going to be working on later this year. And then we also, oh, Courtney, did you attach the organizational analysis in a different email? I think you did. Because last meeting we had identified a few key points from that organizational analysis that we might want to like discuss further or do something on this call.
Yeah, I can attach, I maybe forgot them on this most recent email, but I can share them real quick, the sort of highlighted points that we called out.
Awesome, thank you. Anything standing out for anyone? Chaska, can you say more about the committee engagement with the Basin Roundtables? So that was a point It was coming up a lot. I'm trying to think, maybe like in February, March-ish. And I don't know a ton about that. I don't think we had really had a plan. I think it was just the thought that like, is there some sort of way that we can connect the basin roundtables with forest collaboratives? Is there a way that we can kind of like make their work more known or integrate better with their work? And I don't know much about the basin roundtables, to be completely honest.
I haven't been checking in with the Basin Roundtables as much as I used to, but I do remember thinking back when I was thinking a lot about the Basin Roundtables that, like, what's missing from these conversations are discussions about wildfire and forest resilience. So I would defer to somebody who's been more in the loop, but that could be a really great way to sort of better integrate across, DNR and CWCB potentially.
Well, my exposure to the roundtables has been some of the research that they support or pass on information as a conduit. And some of the things are directly related to how we thin forests, what patterns are used on what slopes. There's a lot of valuable research there, but that's that and projects, funding projects is a real useful connection for, I think, for us.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Laura, you've got a hand raised as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer up that for the guide, we are connecting with folks from the Colorado Water Conservation Board. Somebody will attend one of our focus groups. And CDR has connections and has previously facilitated some of the Interbasin Compact Committee meetings. So if we can facilitate a connection there, please let us know.
Okay, that's really good to know. Do we think it would be worthwhile to have like one of them on a call like this to kind of share more about their work and some of their bigger goals, and then we can think through like what our role might be or how we can leverage that resource as the committee title suggests?
Would it make sense to have someone from IBCC, since the last I checked in, the roundtables were fairly kind of independent, but does IBCC still coordinate? Are they the entity that coordinates across all of them? I guess that's a question for Laura.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Laura, do you know that answer?
I don't, but I could connect with Jonathan and get an answer for that.
Awesome. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, welcome, and I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. So sorry, my computer decided to log me out of everything and have me update everything with
Oh
password.
no,
So,
I hate when that happens.
yeah. So I attend. I'm not the voting member. We have a staff member because my schedule is so busy. But I attend the South Basin Roundtable meetings every month, and I think I have one next week. But they seem to be. For me, and knowing the Arkansas Valley one, I know so the commissioners down there talking on that one, it seems they kind of operate independently, and I do know that they have grant cycles, and it kind of matches kind of the grant discussions that I'm in. So I don't know, other than the Water Congress, I don't know what actual yearly collaborative meeting or how, if there's people from the executive committee that ends up going to a overarching committee, but I can just say the meetings I've been for the last few years, or a couple of years there, it seems to be really kind of, they operate as their own separate, their entity is kind of really focused on their goals and what they're talking about in the projects. And so it might be, if we are thinking about getting out and connecting with them, it might have to be going to each one and talking. So and educating, because they're really different, just to let you know. So
How many are there across the state?
6, 7. I'm not trying to think. There's a picture of them and they have their boundaries. Don't quote me on that.
So like
means-
roughly 6-ish.
yeah,
I think it was 9. I think it was
Was there
9.
nine? yeah.
Unless they dropped some, because there was discussion about Metro Basin and Upper South Platte. Jody, you might know, did they end up merging?
I don't know if they did. I'm trying to think who was on the last meeting. I know, that makes sense because there's, but, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm trying to think, was
But
any,
they did.
I know they were talking about it, but I don't tend to stay for the whole 3-hour meeting. They're very long meetings.
Mm.
So I think you're right. It is 9. That's a good question. Now I'm curious. I'm just looking through, I'm in my head thinking about all the people on the list that were on the Zoom call, but I don't know who was in the room. So that'd be something to check out because it makes sense. They're just kind of a little island surrounded all by South Platte. So, but I'm looking at the map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, 9. Thank you.
I read all of their governing documents at one point, so I went down that rabbit hole.
And you don't
And don't
remember
you-
how many there are?
Would you agree that they're all very different, have different goals and focuses? So, yeah.
So they're all pretty different, but then Chaska, you were saying that, what was it? IBCC is like maybe if there is coordination, that's where it would be at that top level.
Yeah, I think in the enabling legislation that established the Basin Roundtables, like the Water for the Next Century or whatever, I can't remember what it was called, they did have some sort of overarching governing body that I think is associated with the Water Congress. And so if there's a way to connect to the kind of the bigger body, then great. But if not, yeah, different, they each have different, sort of ways of organizing. They have different goals, very different models, different cultures surrounding water. It's really interesting.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, it sounds like people are interested in this idea. If we were to maybe pull them into a call, like what sorts of goals would we be looking for? What are we, I don't know, I'm curious like what sort of conversation we might want to facilitate with a group like that.
If I might chime in real quick, before I lose internet again, I think it'd be just great to start off with just, hey, we want to learn more about you. We'd like to have you learn more about us. And then what questions do you have of us? And what do you think we could do together? And just kind of that set a goal, but just try to build that partnership and those conversations and just see where they go from there.
Courtney, go ahead.
I know I'm also not really a part of the committee, but I feel curious to understand. Yeah, I don't know so much about the Race Basin Roundtable, so starting where Jody shared makes sense, and then also asking like, what kind of resources do you have? Do you make available to the state, and how can you see other resources working with those? If it's funding or science or program management, like maybe also asking those questions about what resources they have and how they can see those being leveraged. Because sometimes people ask that to DNR and COSWAP, and it really makes us think like, okay, that is a good question. What does leverage COSWAP? And it kind of makes us as staff dive into that a little bit more. So it can be nice to have that question posed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's a really simple question to ask and a really a thought-provoking question to answer, I think. So cool. I think that sounds really good. And I think we can tie that back into some of the conversations that we had about what other states are doing. And so maybe we start there. I think our next meeting is filled, but maybe in the next couple of months, we could have a conversation like that and just see where it leads. Does anyone else have thoughts or ideas about this? Awesome. So kind of zooming back out a little bit, I had posted the parking lot list, and so we kind of zoomed in on one of those, but I'm also just curious to know, like generally how we might want to strategize with this committee moving forward, like once our big couple of projects wrap up, kind of the what's next question. So I do like this idea of maybe just identifying resources or groups that are doing really interesting work and just asking them those two questions, and also asking other committee members or other Forest Health Council members that same question, like, what resources do you have? What do you have to offer? How can, how can these resources be leveraged, or how can we work with other bodies and just kind of facilitate partnerships? And maybe that's where we go, is just one at a time through those sorts of questions. All right. Well, I think we've solved it then. Oh, I'm seeing some things in the chat. You can start by reviewing their summaries in Colorado. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Chaska. That's all helpful. Courtney, can you put Chaska's note in the meeting notes? You're probably already on it.
Yep. I'm pulling those in.
Thank you so much.
What is the date of the most recent Colorado water plan? Anybody? I don't know if I've got the current one or an old one.
It would be like every 5 years. So the first one was 2015. I believe they did an update in 2020. So it might be a bit long in the tooth since they've updated.
Yeah, I've
I'm
got
seeing on the website 2023 Colorado Water Plan.
It's okay. Yeah, I've got the 15 here. I'll have to get the new one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I pulled up their website. It looks like 2023. So that would mean the next one is going to be 28. Are they keeping with the 5-year timeline pretty well, or?
I've heard with the negotiations for the bigger interstate compact, that I heard it on NPR the other day that they might be a little delayed with the latest one, just because they're still trying to figure that all out and get those
Mhm.
negotiations kind of more solid, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Water plan is updated every 10 years, roughly, according to their website. Okay, interesting. Yeah, this shows how disconnected I am, because I don't know much about this.
there's a program in Larimer County with the Colorado Water Center that I've taken. It's a year-long program. A lot of electeds and folks involved with organizations. It's called the Colorado Water Leaders Class. And this is a big section. We talk about this and plan and having conversations with folks. And so there's lots of great resources on Colorado Water Center page as well to talk to learn more about this. And also Headwaters Economics is also a really great kind of resource we use as alumni of that program.
Awesome. I think you're still on your phone. I was going to ask if you could drop some of that in the chat, but I think we can track that in the meeting notes.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm still trying to log into my computer. I need to find all my weird passwords so to log back in. So apologize.
That's okay. It totally happens. And it's always at the worst times. It's always when you're in the middle of a meeting. It's not just when you're working on a Word doc.
Of course. Monday, right?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Courtney, for putting that link in the chat. Is there anything else that this committee wants to focus on relating to that water nexus, or do we think that we've got a pretty good place to start by just engaging with the basin roundtables and kind of seeing what they're up to?
If I might add 2 cents here, I think focusing on that question that Courtney said and having them learn about us and us learn about them, I think it's really important to help establish how important forest health is for the watersheds and water quality. And there's a lot of rabbit holes here. And I think, I don't remember her first name. I apologize. I'm working off my phone, but I think there's a lot of opportunities to go down all these wonderful rabbit holes. But maybe in the beginning, it's important to stay focused on those few important, establishing relationships and learning about each other. And then I think I heard this at the Water Congress too. A lot of folks still not quite understanding that strong connection between forest health and restoration and watersheds and that. So just something I've been thinking about. The conversation's been having in my own county. So just to share my 2 cents, just thoughts of my own.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think the conversation is definitely picking up to a point where people are starting to focus on it a lot more. Like I've seen it at a lot more conferences and stuff.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
trying to get back to you here so I can raise my hand.
Oh, it's
Hear you, but
okay. Consider it raised.
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Yeah, just wanted to say that one of the things that's happening in Southwest Colorado is a climate shift, and that climate shift is fairly subtle, but it's large enough to spur the production and of a lot of beetles in the pine trees, different types of beetles. And looking at the climate relationship, not only to water, but to the diseases and insects that are killing our forests. I know in one region here where we had a logging crew doing a lot of thinning, and they had to be diverted just to the spring to start taking down dead beetle trees, get them out of the forest down into a different biome south of here where the beetles, well, there is no food for them. They'll all die out. But that impact of climate, water, and forest health, I think, is a critical triangle.
Courtney, I'm curious if you know if there's any updates to the status of the full Forest Health Council 30-year vision planning timeline, because I do think a lot of these conversations will come up when we are all working on that as well.
Yes. I'm happy to give an update. Tentatively, the contracting for a facilitator should start hopefully in the next month. Ideally, we will have the facilitator join the July meeting for a short amount of time to sort of lay the groundwork and ask questions about deliverables and form and process. And then we'll try to have the true facilitation, a full day facilitation happen sometime either late summer, early fall, but before the end of the year, ideally. That timeline is still a draft, and I think until we get the facilitator under contract, there'll be some adjustments, but the goal is certainly to have it happen before the end of this calendar year.
Okay. And that's going to be a full day meeting with the full council.
That's something that we hope at the July meeting, the facilitator might help guide that discussion and help ask the questions. Are you guys wanting to put together like a short, succinct, punchy document? Are you wanting to put together a 30-year vision that's more of a report? And depending on what the deliverable is, I think that'll influence what the process of creating it is. So that's something that I think the council will decide together.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine some around a day or a day and a half facilitated discussion that has yet to be put on the calendar.
Yeah. Is the July meeting going to be in person?
Yes, I'm sending an email out hopefully today or tomorrow. This is an update for everyone. The July meeting is hybrid. It's going to be taking place in Glenwood Springs, and Amy Moyer is helping put together some tours that
Awesome.
speak directly to this same topic, which is the nexus between forest health and watershed health and water infrastructure. So that should be a very interesting meeting, and more information will be going out really soon about it.
Cool. Thanks for that update. That's awesome. I'm excited to go to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we've got a game plan for at least the next couple months out. Is there anything else that anyone feels like we should do maybe in preparation for a discussion about a 30-year vision, like maybe some smaller group discussion here that we want to have? No? All right. Chaska?
Sorry, I can't help an opportunity to raise my hand. Have you thought about, so I'm curious coming in without having heard the previous conversations about how this, like the 30-year plan is sort of like a vision statement for the state of Colorado, just like a little bit more background. I'm curious, you know, if you're following an existing kind of framework like cohesive strategy elements, or sort of how much you thought about how you're going to kind of frame this document up. It sounds like it's still very nascent.
Yes, it is. Courtney, do you want to take a stab at it first?
Yeah, I can speak to this, which is that the only thing that is certain about the 30-year vision is what's written in statute. And I will post that into the chat. And it is going to be up to the council to decide how this document connects to other documents, how it ties in or doesn't tie in, where it lives, what form it takes. So I'll share the statute with you, but all those other details are going to be things that the council decides together. And so, yeah, maybe it will take more than one full day facilitation. Maybe it'll take this facilitator attending the October Forest Health Council meeting, getting more information about how this document connects to other resources, leverages other resources. So let me throw this in the chat real quick.
Yeah, and I think the two discussions that I really remember standing out from, I think it was the last full council meeting, we talked a little bit about this. One of the questions was, where could it live? And we had talked about, I think, an idea of it living within like the Colorado Forest Action Plan. And that discussion was kind of like, well, the pro of that is like it lives in a place that it will be used and that some number of people will see it. The con of that is that it's supposed to be kind of this cross-disciplinary, like statewide plan that's informed by all of the different members of the council. And so if it lives in this Colorado State Forest Service centric document, will that be really what we're looking for? So that was a discussion that we had. And then the other discussion we had was kind of what you were asking, Chaska, about like, is this going to be a super long report with like different sections for all the different needs? Or is it going to be like a one sentence vision statement that says like, we want forests to be vibrant and sustainable and all those good things? And I don't think we've landed anywhere on either of those, to my knowledge. I think we just kind of discussed, and it'll be up to the facilitator to rally everyone around an answer to each of those. I think everyone agreed we don't want it to be overly prescriptive because there's a lot of plans out there and a lot of things going on already. And so how can we like tie them all together into something that is valuable, but also not too directive? I think one role for this committee, Courtney, you were just mentioning like one topic of discussion is definitely going to be like, how can we leverage a lot of existing things into this vision statement? So I don't know if we could have some discussions about that behind the scenes and be able to bring that into a Forest Health Council discussion. And maybe that's totally jumping the gun for the point that we're at right now, considering we have no other information right now. Courtney?
I was just going to say, I think that makes a lot of sense that as there's discussions about the 30-year vision, that something this committee can stay focused on is making sure that leveraging resources either as a value or specifically, depending on how the 30-year vision ends up being written, is included. I think what you said makes sense.
Awesome. Got one vote of support for that idea.
I think it'll be really important as a full council, we just come back to, we haven't had that discussion in over a year as a full council. So I'm really anxious to see after all this work where we're at about that. Part of our statutory or written in statute, what our duties are. And I'm anxious to hear that conversation after all this ground that we've covered all together and what that leads us. So I'm really thinking this will be a powerful meeting and important meeting for everyone to be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Courtney, I assume this is already on the agenda for a decent chunk of time for the July meeting.
I have it tentatively on the agenda for an hour.
Okay.
We're still moving through the contracting process, so
Right.
I'm not 100% sure that the facilitator will be on board before July 24th. I'm hopeful and praying that it works out that way. Timelines align.
Time will tell.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's definitely plan to keep that in mind as well as like a higher up parking lot discussion, maybe. So for next meeting, I think we're primarily going to focus on forest tracker updates. Brett was not able to make it to this meeting today, but I think the plan is that they're going to kind of soft launch the forest tracker for our next legislative committee meeting. And so we'll all be able to like hear about kind of the latest and greatest and get a chance to comment on that. And then we've got a couple of parking lot objectives related to that, namely being like once we've all had a chance to see it and understand it, possibly writing some sort of a letter of support or letter of acknowledgement or something from the Forest Health Council so that we can share that out with the full state and be able to say like, hey, we've got people from all these different disciplines and specialties, and we all are excited about this forest tracker. So please enter your data and like, let's make this a really cool statewide resource. So that'll be something that we'll be talking about starting in our next meeting. And then I think we'll also weave that into the full council meeting in July as well.
So you said our next legislative meeting, and that's this Friday. I guess I didn't know Brett was on the agenda. Is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant leveraging resources.
Oh, okay.
If I said legislative, that
Yeah.
was a
You
mistake.
did. I was like, oh, okay. That's on.
I'm taking over the agenda. No. That was a mistake. I'm sorry. Like, they both start with le sound, so I just spit them out. Awesome. Well, with all that said, I think I might just close us out a little bit early if there's not a ton of discussion on this stuff. It sounds like we've got some pretty straightforward next steps, and we'll weave all that into our next couple of meetings. If nobody has final discussion items, we can take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I saw Clyde's mouth move like, yes. All right, we got a motion for a second. All right, well, with that, I will see you all in about a month. So thanks everybody for joining.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.